obviously talk about Texas and what Texas means.
Yeah.
And, when I'm here in Texas, I spend a certain amount of time explaining the East Coast to Texans. And when
Okay.
I'm on the East Coast, I spend a lot of time explaining Texas to the East Coast. And people have a very, well, do you have something to say now, Sharon? Yes.
Well, it's interesting because, like you said, El Paso is one part of Texas. Dallas is very different. And so my experiences are, and then I was in Austin for a while. I'll back up to Austin real quickly and then get to present day. But when I went to UT, the thing that struck me was how white that campus was.
Mm.
There was diversity in El Paso, and I saw none of that. I don't remember a Hispanic, a Black, and I was sitting with some girls I just met at lunch one day, and a Black student came up and asked if he could join us. I said, "Sure, sit down." And they looked at me if looks could have killed,
Oh,
and I
wow.
I was unprepared for that because I grew up in El Paso with a family that was very welcoming. That just, I'm not going to say we didn't see color, but I certainly wouldn't have said to somebody, "You can't sit with us." Just going through that transition. So now being in Dallas, um, Dallas isn't known for great sights or beautiful mountains or any of that, but it's been a great place to work and a great place to raise kids. And it is very diversified, a huge Indian population, Hispanic, Black. And, my kids, even though they were in private school, those private schools were integrated as well. So I loved it. It's very business friendly. They think of all of Texas as conservative. But Dallas proper is very, very liberal. I mean, most of our local leaders are Democratic. So it's very mixed. I try to be pretty quiet about my politics. I'm certainly not going to get on Facebook and do anything because I'm not going to convince anybody. And I think most of them, it's so crazy out there right now. Who do I defend?
Yeah.
So I think I'm pretty moderate in where I stand. And I try to stay that way. And I try to not get into conversations with people that are going to end badly because of that. It's just awful what I've seen, what it's done to families and friends. So
Yeah, it is horrible. And one of the things that I defend Texas when I talk to my East Coast friends, I once had a good friend say to me about something Texas had done. She actually said, "Well, the problem with Texans is that they don't have any principles." And yeah, I took umbrage. I went, no, they do have principles. They have different principles from you, perhaps, but they are very principled people. And one of the ways that I think the East Coast misunderstands Texas is that I think Texans are very welcoming.
yeah, warm and welcome.
They're very community oriented. I tell people all the time, and I know they don't believe me, that I see more, like when you go to a restaurant, I see more diverse dining tables in Texas than I ever see in the Virginia area. Just way more, obviously the family has the Mexican part of it, and then it's got maybe even the African American part of it or the Asian. And then there's the few good old boys hanging out there, and they're all clearly together. Uh, but the thing that Texas resents, I think Texans resent more than anything, is for any of these things to be imposed upon them by a so-called higher power. That's my analysis of Texas. And Texans definitely do not think government is a solution for
Oh,
much of anything.
right.
So your reaction.
And I'm going to back up and then I'll answer that. I actually go to an evangelical church that
Uh-huh.
I would love to take a picture of because you talk about
Yes.
diversity. I sit next to Indians, Hispanics, Blacks, Chinese, and nobody would believe it. And it's a church that was disgraced because the pastor was involved with a 21-year-old or 16-year-old girl when he was 20. So it's
Well,
a
okay,
very,
now that's pretty much standard
yeah,
for
well,
a lot of these
it was a bad
churches.
one.
I mean, I don't want to take a
No,
cheap shot, but I
no,
just
there's a
did.
lot of that. But anyway, that's diverse. So your question about Say that again about your question when I interrupted you about
But they
Texas.
don't, what they don't want is these things to be imposed upon
Oh,
them
in terms of
by
government and
others,
all.
and that they don't think government is the solution for much of anything.
Well, and I think that goes to the business environment. This is a good place to do business for that reason. I mean, it's they let you, they're kind of hands off, and I have mixed feelings. I'm a big believer, and I give back, and I help, and I volunteer,
I know
I
you do.
work, and so I'm not pro give it all away, and so that will get to me because I'm sitting there thinking I've worked so hard, and I share what I have, but I don't want to be told to share what I have.
Hmm.
That's it.
Yeah.
I make that decision on my own.
But all right, I'm going to pipe in here and say
Sure.
I think that the same thing is true for the East Coast. They don't want to be told what to do by a so-called higher power. The difference is they believe they are the higher power, so it would never occur to them that that
Huh.
could happen. And so
Interesting.
I think that's their rebellion right now around the Trump administration is, well, there's not supposed to be any higher power for us. There's only supposed to be higher power for the people who've got it wrong.
Well, I
And
Interesting.
know
it's
both of
that
you have seen the documentary, The Power We Hold, about women in the intelligence community.
Oh yeah.
And
It's
one of
riveting.
the things that I say in that documentary is that large organizations are elite focused, and that's really a problem. And there's lots of different ways to define elites, and I don't really define it there, but I do think, and I don't know where even you would draw the line, but there's some kind of difference between how I don't even, it's very hard to find the words because sometimes they're kind of demeaning or they have value to them. But I think the average human being does not want their life consumed by politics. The average
No.
human being wants to live their life, raise their children, have their relationships, enjoy whatever quirky things they enjoy. That's what's important to them.